Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. And thank you for attending another live training webinar with NDD. Today, we are going to be focusing on our newest spirometer, which is the EasyOne Sky. And we are excited to go through and do another training on this device. All right, so as you saw when you signed up for the training, today we're going to learn all about our newest spirometer, the EasyOne Sky. We're going to explore the EasyOne Windows app with a step-by-step walkthrough. We're going to watch a demonstration of a test with our spirometry coach, Buddy. And then we're going to learn how to perform a successful spirometry test, and then an open question and answer session at the end. All right, of course, you can type your questions over into that question panel at any point during the webinar. We will take time to look at those at the end. And then if your question is really specific, maybe for your situation or your facility, I get to see all of those questions once we wrap up the webinar, so I can always reach out to you directly if your question did not get answered. All right, so jumping right into the EasyOne Sky spirometer, what did we strive to accomplish with this new product? The EasyOne Sky is designed to lower the hurdle of high quality spirometry for healthcare providers. One of the biggest things that we hear, especially from primary care physicians, as justification to why they maybe don't do spirometry is just the lack of training for their providers, and just the test can be difficult. So we really wanted to come in and create a solution that anyone could pick up and use and get good quality spirometry results. The EasyOne Sky transforms spirometry testing into a seamless and enjoyable part of patient care. The EasyOne Sky reduces complexity and the administrative burden on healthcare providers, allowing them to focus on improving patient outcomes. We know when we do spirometry early or at first signs of symptoms, that early diagnosis is so key, especially in COPD and other lung disorders. So we want to try to improve patient outcomes whenever possible through this early diagnosis. So again, why the EasyOne Sky? First and foremost is the ease of use of the device. It's a streamlined app. Only the essential features in the application are present, which means less user training. The operational efficiency, fast and simplified testing. Buddy will guide the patient through the maneuver with error detection and the overall session grading. The PDF report at this time can be exported. Data security and connectivity, cloud connected for unlimited data storage and test. The customer doesn't need to maintain their old database like on our other devices, and is also GDPR and HIPAA compliant. It is accurate and up to date. This is high quality data with our proven TrueFlow technology. All right, as I mentioned, this uses a little bit of a different software. It uses uses the EasyOne mobile app, which at this time is a Windows-based application. The app displays what the sensor measures and calculates. The EasyOne mobile app focuses on the essentials. You'll notice that it doesn't maybe have as many settings as the traditional EasyOne Connect or what you see on your EasyOne Air. But we want to focus on making high quality spirometry effortless and stress-free. As I said, this is not a direct replacement for EasyOne Connect. Right now, we only have 2 available languages, and that is English and Spanish. And the reason for that is right now, the EasyOne Sky is only available in the US market. It will shortly be expanding to a global audience, but right now we did focus on English and Spanish for the languages just because of where we did decide to make the launch. The EasyOne mobile application is available on our website to download, just like our EasyOne Connect software. As I mentioned earlier, the EasyOne mobile app is connected to the NDD cloud for that unlimited patient storage and test storage. So what does the NDD cloud do? The NDD cloud stores and transmits data safely. It also manages your user accounts and organization. That's it. The data is stored and backed up on the cloud database, which is Microsoft Azure, and it does not leave the region of origin. For example, we've launched in the US, so US data stays in the US cloud. For you, the customer, there's no more managing databases or data storage locations. No more worries about backing up, hard drive crashes, lost data. It's safe and secure, state-of-the-art security provided by that Microsoft Azure. And there's no data stored on the local machine. So there's no worries about patient information falling into the wrong hands. Data is uploaded from the EasyOne Sky after a test or the next time you're online and connected to the cloud. It can be downloaded anytime from the NDD cloud. And EMR, EHR connections can be made for a fleet of devices. You'll see that this device is really at its best when it's fully integrated with an EMR, EHR system. Again, for the customer, test results can be accessed anytime, anywhere, and there's no configuring the EMR integration on a single computer. It's based on user accounts and defined by NDD. All right, looking at the product itself, you'll notice that the EasyOne Sky spirometer, it's a lot smaller, it's easy to hold onto. It does also have the wrist strap for patient safety so that it's not getting dropped or mishandled. And you'll also notice that it does work with a Bluetooth dongle via via a Bluetooth connection. The Bluetooth dongle, a lot of people have said, why did you choose to incorporate a dongle? Well, not all Windows PCs have built-in Bluetooth capabilities. And even if they do have Bluetooth capabilities, they might not necessarily meet the security or data speed or the range, all of those standards that are needed to be able for the EasyOne Sky to function. The built-in Bluetooth modules may suffer from interference. That dongle is creating a stable connection at all time between the app and the EasyOne Sky spirometer. And for security as well, it's an encrypted transfer over that BLE technology. All right, so I think it's time to go ahead and hop over to the Windows app so that we can get an introduction to the system. I'm going to swap my screen over here just a moment. All right. We are going to go ahead and bring up the Windows app. So this is the home screen for the EasyOne Mobile Windows app. You'll notice that it's very streamlined. There's only 4 navigational tabs at the top. On the right-hand side, we have a few different icons. One is showing that my EasyOne Sky is connected via that Bluetooth connection and ready to use. I'm also online, connected to the NDD cloud, and I am logged in as a healthcare professional, which is the only profile that is available right now on the Sky. The activities landing page here, we'll start here. You'll see that I don't have any activities pending. This activities page is really for those customers that are fully integrated with their EMR system, where orders are being placed in the EMR, sent to the EasyOne Connect software to show as pending tasks here on the activities page. And then as soon as those are completed in the software, those are synced back to the EMR. I'm going to hop over to the settings tab. Again, you will notice if you're used to seeing our other devices that this is a much more condensed list of options. Again, just to kind of take some of the mystery and the complication out of spirometry, we just wanted to put the most common settings in place. So for the default test type, right now there are only 2 options, the FVC, which is that forced expiratory only maneuver, or the FVL, which is the full traditional flow volume loop. We do have the ability to use the EasyOne Filter FT for flow tube with this device. So if we have yes checked here in the filter settings, what that's going to do is simply prompt the system to ask you, are you using a filter or are you not before each test? The predicted value set, you'll see that there are 3 options here, the GLI 2012, NHANES number 3, and the race neutral global GLI 2023. Those predicted value sets are how we determine a patient is normal by comparing their values to a healthy patient population of their same ethnicity in some cases, their height, their age, and their sex at birth. Next is system interpretation. You'll see that there are only 2 options available right now in the app, and that is the Gold Hardy and the ATS 2022 interpretation. So how are we interpreting these results as normal, obstructive, restrictive, and then how severe those impairments may or may not be. And then last but not least, the incentive. When we can look at the traditional curves while we do the test, or if we want the buddy coaching helper to be with us during the test, that is the show incentive option. All right, moving down a tab on the left-hand side here to the system. If underneath devices, it's going to show you with the device that is currently connected to your app first on top. And then if you've connected to other devices in the past, they would be listed down here as well. Sorry about that. Units is units of measurement. So formatting the device, what units of measurement are we using? Our time format, our date format. The system language, again, right now, only English and Spanish are available. And then the firmware. One really nice thing, as you can see on my screen, it's currently checking my firmware version. In the past, on let's say on EasyOne Air, we would have to download the firmware updates from the NDD website. We would have to connect the Air via the cord to the computer. We would have to perform that firmware update. The wonderful thing about the Sky is we can update the firmware directly from the app. And as soon as we come into this, it will also check and confirm that our firmware is up to date. All right, moving one more tab down to edit profile. This is where, again, each user does have their own login, their own password and PIN into the EasyOne mobile app. So if any of those things need to be adjusted, if permissions need to be changed, you need to change your password or your PIN, that can be done here underneath edit profile. And last but not least here is all of the manufacturing information. So tech support phone numbers, the licensing, the digital operators manual, everything that you would need would be located here. All right. I'm going to pop over to the service tab. Now I will give some feedback here. This device is just like all of our other spirometry devices. We do not require manual calibration on this device for its lifetime. It uses that true flow point-to-point ultrasound to measure flow. However, we know that there are some facilities because of biomed regulations. We know that some customer populations, testing and research, occupational health, that they are going to need to check calibration at a regular interval. So there is the option right now to check via a single flow cal check. You will see that I do have the multi-flow cal check as an option. This is we are planning an update to the EasyOne mobile app around September, where that multi-flow cal check will be available. I've been working with our product managers to test that, so that's why I already have it on my screen. The self-check, you'll know on our other devices that before the start of each test sequence, we are prompted to block either end of the mouthpiece, just so that that flow sensor can reset to a baseline of 0. On this device, those mandated checks are not necessary. You can always come in and perform a self-check, or if the software prompts you, to go perform a self-check, you can come and do that, but it will not be prompting you before every single test like on our other devices. And then last but not least, feedback questionnaires. This is a new product to the market for us. So any feedback from customers or people using the devices is very, very valuable to our team as we continue to develop this product. All right. Last but not least, we've come to the patients tab. You'll see that there are a lot of different patients here. As you continue to add patients to your mobile app, they will appear on this screen. Another really wonderful thing about the EasyOne Sky is we are able to group these spirometers by organization. So multiple spirometers, multiple locations. Let's say a doctor has 5 or 6 different clinics. There are 2 spirometers in each clinic. We are able to group all of those installations as a single organization. So while the physician might be located at clinic A, he is still able to access the tests from clinic B, C, and D, from all of those spirometers, which makes the ease of use of this so much nicer. In the future, we will be able to group a little bit more in detail by location, by organization, by technician. All of those things are coming, but right now being able to group by organization is just a huge plus. All right, you'll see that there is a filter search at the top here, but I'm going to go over to the right-hand side and add a new patient. All right, everything on this page does need to be filled out for our patient information. I'm going to just put my initials in, and then the app will definitely tell me I have a duplicate patient because I have several patient profiles in here. Our date of birth. All right. Our sex at birth. The ethnicity, if you are using that global GLI that does not take the race into account for the FEV1, FVC, and the ratio, we still need to have something in this blank just because our other two predicted value sets do need an ethnicity entered. Again, you can have the patients choose their actual ethnicity using GLI, or if you're more comfortable, they can always just pick other when using that predicted value set. Our height in feet and inches, unless we have, of course, selected metric in our settings, and then, of course, our patient's weight. All right. Once we kind of confirm that everything is correct, we can click Add Patient. Again, my system is going to yell at me saying that a duplicate patient exists. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. You'll see that there are several of me in the system. All right. So now that we have entered our patient into the system, just like our other devices, if you are using this as a standalone device, not pulling patient information from your EMR, you can pre-enter patients for the day if you need to. Once a patient is in the system, they stay in the system. All right, I'm going to pick just one of these profiles that I have created. When you click on a patient profile, you'll see all of the patient information top. The patient ID display if you are connected to an EMR and it is pulling that patient information over for you. Down below, you'll see completed activities, past spirometries that this patient has done on their device. One thing that I do want to note, right now, we are not able to recalculate test results based on incorrect patient demographics. This feature is coming in that new software release, that new app release in September that I mentioned earlier, talking about the multi-flow cal check. But right now, if we enter the patient's height wrong, their age wrong, we're not able to recalculate that test. So because of that, I always say this is kind of the last call to confirm that all of your patient information is correct. And thankfully, we've gone one step further. And when I click on new test, it's going to actually have me confirm that patient's identity further. Again, just checking those vital settings before we go into the test. All right. I am going to pause sharing my screen here for just a moment so that we can get the device ready to test. Just like with any spirometer, there are some things to keep in mind when preparing our patients for the spirometry test. We're going to talk a lot about coaching the patient through the test, what makes a quality spirometry test here in just a few minutes. But how do we prepare our patients? We know that this is a difficult test, and especially with the EasyOne Sky, we're targeting primary care. So these might be patients that have never seen a pulmonologist or an allergist and had any exposure to this type of testing before. We will need our patient consumables for every test. So we obviously will need our EasyOne Sky spirometer. This device uses the flow tube mouthpiece, which is the one that's shaped a little bit like a rectangle. It's the same mouthpiece that the EasyOne Air uses. And then even if we are doing an exhalation only maneuver, I still always do recommend using patient nose clips. They can be sneaky. You'll see a slide about that later on. And then, of course, if your facility requires the use of an inline filter, you can also use the EasyOne Filter FT for this device. All right. Sometimes we don't know that a patient will be doing spirometry before they come into the office. Sometimes it is because of the symptoms that they are describing to their physician. Sometimes it could be any number of reasons that we are doing spirometry, but the patient sometimes doesn't know. If you know in advance that the patient most likely will perform spirometry, a few things to keep in mind. Discussing with the physician how long to withhold certain medications, such as an albuterol inhaler. We don't want somebody doing their inhaler in the parking lot and then coming in and having artificially wonderful results. Some offices will have certain medications held, food a certain amount of time before. We don't want somebody having a really, really full stomach and then coming in to perform this forced maneuver. Withholding caffeine for a certain amount of time before the test is many times ideal. And then also what the patient can be wearing. We don't want the patient wearing anything that's tight and restrictive during the test. We want them to feel comfortable to take the biggest, deepest breath in and blast it out as hard and as fast as they can. So things that we can't see: chest binders, abdominal binders, shapewear, girdles, suspenders, tight athletic wear, compression clothing, anything again that would prohibit that movement from happening during the test. And again, sometimes the patient doesn't know that they're getting spirometry, but anything that we can do to make them more comfortable will just be a better test for you. Another thing that we get asked about all the time is dentures. Should we leave dentures in? I think that if dentures are well fitted, secured in the patient's mouth, they're going to be able to make a better, tighter seal on the mouthpiece, leaving those dentures in place. However, if they are ill-fitted at all, not secure, you notice them moving when the patient is talking, we definitely would want to remove those prior to a test. All right. When we talk to patients about spirometry, we have to let them know. Sometimes patients get really nervous when you throw the word test into anything. They think it's something that they can fail. The biggest thing with this type of test is letting patient know that it is completely dependent on their effort. We know that we have a job as a spirometry coach to get the best results from our patients, but this is a completely patient-dependent test. I always say, I wish there was a way we could just put stickers on our patient like an EKG and magically know they have an obstruction that I need to address. They have COPD, they have asthma. Unfortunately, it's not that way. We are eliciting a very strange and specific behavior from our patients. And so we need to be able to understand not only what that feels like, but how to coach that maneuver effectively. We need to let the patients know that they have to do this a minimum of 3 times, 3 trials that are acceptable by ATS ERS criteria, and also repeatable, meaning one trial looks like the next, so that we know that we have confidence in their test results. All right. Our device complies with the ATS ERS 2019 spirometry standards. So all of the acceptability criteria, repeatability criteria, all comes directly from that spirometry standard. All right. We are going to hop back over to the software, and you guys are going to get your first look at the real life Buddy within the software. Buddy, the spirometry coach, we created him to help guide the nurse and the patient through the exam. Buddy gives instructions prior to every test. You'll see those here in just a moment, where it really does walk through all steps. Technicians, I always suggest having your own mouthpiece that you use as a demonstration mouthpiece, so the patient really can see and understand what they're supposed to be doing prior to the test. But you will see that Buddy is going to help us here. All right. All right, so we're back over in the app. So I am going to go ahead and click on New Test. Again, it is going to have me confirm that patient's demographics before launching into the test. It's going to connect over to my Sky sensor. It's going to start with some things to know. Of course, if you experience pain at any point during the test, stop immediately. Again, if you've had recent surgery, health issues, are pregnant, are unsure whether you can perform the test, of course, have that discussion with a healthcare professional. And once I click continue, I am going to pop over to the Buddy instruction page. All right, you cannot hear it just because it's coming through my headphones, but there is some music playing as Buddy starts to walk the patient through the test. From opening and inserting that flow tube mouthpiece, ensuring that the arrows line up, Having the patient sit up nice and straight with their feet flat on the floor. And of course, placing their nose clip. We're going to push start test to begin. Have the patient make a good tight seal. Take a big deep breath in and immediately blast it out as hard and as fast as they can. They're going to keep blowing and keep blowing and keep blowing until there is no more air coming out of that patient's lungs. They've made it to that point of expiratory plateau. All right, you'll see that these instructions do play on a loop so that you can sit and work with your patient as many times as needed before launching into the actual test. All right, I do have my filter use enabled in my settings, so it's asking me, am I using that EasyOne Filter FT for this test or am I not? Today I am not, so I'm going to click no. All right, now we're going to follow along with Buddy. He's having his patient take a deep breath in, then they're going to blast it out as hard and as fast as they can until no more air is coming out of their lungs. All right, as soon as it senses that there is no more air coming out of the patient's lungs, it will automatically end that trial and bring you over to the results page. Now, just a few things to note here. We want to always encourage our patients to keep blowing and keep blowing until the software senses there's no more air. Most healthy patients empty 80% of their lung volume in the first second of that forced exhalation. So with me going to just shy of 6 seconds on this exhalation, if I dumped 80% in that first second, those last 5 seconds were really, really squeezing out the last bits of air. Your patients will feel like they are out of air before they are actually out of air. So it's our job to encourage them to keep blowing until they get to that point of expiratory plateau or no more air is coming out of their lungs. You'll see both the volume time curve and the flow volume loop displayed on the left-hand side. As we continue to add trials, they will show here where we can toggle between to take a look at those curves a little more closely. Over on the other side, you'll see up top, we're looking at trial acceptability. So the trial that we just performed, and both the FVC, how much volume we got out in all, and our FEV1, how much volume we got out in the first second, those are both acceptable, meaning that I performed the test as an acceptable test based on that ATS ERS criteria. This throws some people off, but look down here below where it says test quality. This is looking at the test session overall. So all the trials that we're going to do combined. And right now it's telling me for both my FEV1 and my FVC that this test is insufficient. That is because, as I mentioned earlier, we have to have a minimum of 3 acceptable reproducible trials for that letter grade to end at that A grade. All right. At any time between trials, you can come in, zoom in on your curves a little bit. And you also can pull up the full list of parameter results, not just the FEV1 and the FVC. All right, it's telling me I need to add another trial, so I'm going to go ahead and click over in the upper right-hand corner to add the next trial. Good tight seal, big breath in, immediately blast it out hard and fast. All right. All right, so you'll see now I have trial 2, which is also this little green happy face. You'll see that this in the trial acceptability, so the trial I just performed, both the FVC and the FEV1 are acceptable. And so now down below, you'll see that my overall test quality has moved up to a letter B grade. All right, remember, to get that perfect letter A, we have to have 3 acceptable reproducible trials. But before we do that, I'm going to mess up just a couple for you so that you can see what happens. So I'm going to click on Add Trial. I'm going to do what a lot of patients do when we ask them to blast out hard and fast. I'm going to cough. All right, so it's popping up telling me that this attempt was not quite sufficient. Our patients need to exhale for quite a bit longer. So we can click on I understand, and we'll see now that we have this red sad face. There's really nothing, as you can see from our trial acceptability, there's nothing here that I can take that is usable for this exam. Right? Now, the middle smiley face, our yellow meh face, he's kind of the hardest to get, but I'm going to show you a quick example, and then I'm going to flip over to my slides so you can see that a little bit more clearly. So what I did there was I didn't complete the trial. So my FEV1 was really good. I blasted out hard and fast, but like some of your patients will do, after just a couple of seconds, I said, oh, okay, I feel like I'm out of air. That's all the air that I have. So again, it's telling me that I really need to exhale longer until my lungs are completely empty. And we'll see that I have the little yellow meh face here. I have an acceptable FEV1, which look, jumped up my session quality grade to an A, but my FVC, that total volume for the entire trial, is only usable. It doesn't look like the other trials that I've done. So it's gonna want me to do another trial to bring that FVC grade up to an A. All right, before I end this, I am gonna go ahead and pop back over to my slides for just a second so that we can look at this a little more closely. So again, our acceptability for each trial is indicated by these stoplight smileys. So we know that green smiley, it indicates both the FEV1 and the FVC are acceptable. They meet all ATS ERS criteria for a good test. The meh face, at least one is usable, but they're both not acceptable. And then of course the red sad face, at least one of those parameters is not usable at all. All right, just like you saw in the live demo, you can see in the upper left-hand corner and then in the table on the right, if the individual trial was acceptable, usable, or not usable. When we have that meh face, again, it's going to give us those tips and tricks to be able to do better on our next trial. So it's telling us we've got to exhale until completely empty. It looks like this example is just like the one I showed you, where the FEV1 is good. They blasted out hard and fast for the first second, but gave up before they made it all the way to that point of expiratory plateau. Same thing with the red smiley face, that sad face. It's going to give us a tip or a trick of why the trial went wrong. And then you're going to see in the chart that neither one of those parameters were usable for the test. All right. So we've talked a lot about what makes a trial acceptable. And it's the first of those things is that explosive start. We want to make sure that the patient, from the moment they start to blast out with no hesitation, is blasting out at their maximal effort. We want to make sure that our FEV1, that how much air we got out in the first second, is accurate. All right. Also, if you're doing that full flow volume leap, we want to make sure that our blast out and our big breath in to return to baseline matches. We want to make sure that there is no back extrapolated volume, meaning, again, we want to make sure that it is an explosive start, as hard and as fast as possible from the beginning. All right, something else that defines acceptability for each maneuver, we want to make sure that there's no glottic closure or an abrupt stop. You'll see this when you go to your results screen, you'll see this clearly displayed on those graphs. No glottic closure or an abrupt air stop in that first second. Or after the first second for that matter. We want to make sure that the patient has a good open airway the entire time. 9 times out of 10, when we see this on our graphs and curves, it is all patient posture. So many times when we tell a patient to blast out as hard and as fast as they can, they curl up in a little ball and they shut off their airway. So making sure that their chin is off of their chest the whole time throughout the maneuver. You saw this one in my examples, that a cough. We especially cannot have a cough within the first second of expiration, like I did in the example. Anything that happens before that FEV1 is calculated, it's going to throw that test out. Now, past 1 second, the software can recover from a cough, as you can see in the example here. but sometimes it's not as easy for our patients to recover from a cough. Once they start coughing, it's really difficult for them to continue to focus on blasting out the rest of their lung volume as hard as fast as they can. So a lot of times, if your patient stops coughing, stopping the maneuver, having them start over is sometimes much easier on the patient than trying to power through. All right, here are those sneaky extra breaths. Sometimes when a patient feels like they're running out of air, they'll try to sneak extra breaths in either around the mouthpiece or most commonly through their nose. This is why even on an expiratory only maneuver, it's really important that our patients are given nose clips or the option to plug their nose. We want this to be one breath. I always say it's kind of like when you were a kid and you do like a breath hold competition, and whoever won was sneaking breaths in through their nose. We don't want that. We want this to be one solid breath, one blast out. All right, we've talked about what makes a test acceptable. Now, what does that next step look like? What does it mean for a test to be reproducible, meaning one trial looks like the next? In the ATS ERS standard, that is for adults or people over 6, repeatability is reached when the difference between the two largest FVCs or FEV1s is a value that is less than or equal to that 1.5 liters. While this is great information to know, this is not something that you are going to have to sit and calculate between your trials. This is something that the app does for us and bases that session quality grade off of that reproducibility. So here is that grading scale. Again, this is not something that we came up with here at NDD. This is directly from the Spirometry 2019 standards. So we know the rules. In order to get that letter A grade, that perfect test score, we have to have 3 or more acceptable maneuvers based on the criteria we just discussed that are within that repeatability range of that 1.5 liters. And you can see it goes on and on and on. Down to a letter F grade. The quality grading is shown on the report, so you'll be able to see for pre, and if you're doing post bronchodilator testing as well, you'll be able to see the session quality grades and the session variability for both the FEV1 and the FVC on the report. So often we get these reports that are not given interpretations because of the lack of data from the patient. We will have questionable test results, and so many times it is looking at this session quality. Interpreting with caution anything below a C-ish grade is something that you have to take into consideration. Remember, the stoplight smileys are smiley faces, acceptability of trials, this grading scale. None of this has anything to do with is the patient sick or not. This is how well did they do the test and how much confidence can we place in these results to guide that patient's care. So even sick patients can give us an acceptable maneuver. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pop back over to the software here. All right. All right. All right, one thing to notice is the software does time out after a few minutes. I do this every time I train on this device because I talk for way too long. So it did time out on me. So I am going to just quickly walk through a test. It's going to reconnect to my Sky. And I am going to skip the instructions this time. All right. Again, I'm going to fly through this test pretty quickly just so that you can see what it looks like when we get that session complete. All right, last but not least. All right, so the coaching bar up here is telling me you did it. The test session is complete. You'll see over here on the right-hand side, that particular last trial was acceptable. Down below, you'll see that I have a letter A grade for the whole session. So each of these is acceptable and reproducible. I can view my results here if I want, but again, once I get to these letter A grades, I have really good confidence that the test is of good quality and I can end the session. So I'm going to go ahead and click on End Test in the upper right-hand corner, and it's going to bring me to this basic results page. You'll see that you have the option to download the PDF report. At this time, that is, unless you're fully connected with your EMR, that is the way to get the reports off of here, where you can save them and drag and drop them into your EMR or print them, whatever you need to do with the report. You can add a trial if for some reason the patient thinks they need to add one more. You can do post-bronchodilator testing. So if you administer albuterol or another medication, wait 15, no more than 30 minutes, come back and do the exact test again to see if there's a % change in that patient's numbers. All right. You'll see again, the overall session quality is going to show at the top. So you have good confidence in these results. You can look at your curves. So looking individually at each of those 3 curves. You can come in and view your results, starting with the best. So the best for each parameter out of all 3 trials performed, but you can also toggle between each individual trial as well to take a look at your numbers. And then the system interpretation for my test is saying, based on that 2022 ATS ERS interpretation standard, that there is a mild obstruction present, which is true. I am asthmatic, so that does tend to pop up. All right, so again, we can download that PDF report, or if we click to close, it's just going to bring us back to that patient profile. So now we can see the test that I just performed as the most recent activity completed. All right. All right. That is kind of the end of the demonstration here. Let me go ahead and stop sharing that screen here for just a moment. I'm going to open up the questions bar and just see if anyone has had any questions pop up. All right, I have one question asking about if, so to be connected to the cloud, yes, you have to be online. You have to have an active internet connection. So what happens if you are testing a patient and you are not online? So that's a great question. So yes, to be connected to the cloud, you have to be connected, have an internet connection, but the app will locally store tests that you perform while you're offline. So then the next time an internet connection is established, all of those tests that were done offline would then sync to the cloud for storage. So no worries about losing tests. They will store locally until the next time that you are online. All right. The hot topic of on everyone's mind, when is the Sky going to be available outside the US? I wish that I had a definitive answer for that question. A lot of this has to do with the cloud approval in these countries. Most countries want to have a locally based cloud. So for instance, right now we have a US based cloud. For example, Switzerland would want a Swiss-based cloud, Canada, a Canadian-based cloud. There are some rules and regulations about cloud hosting that is just making adding more countries a little bit more of a lengthy process. So never fear, we will eventually be global with this project. Again, just at this point, it's only being sold in the US utilizing that US cloud. Right, and I think last but not least, if you have you seen us at a trade show, if you saw early marketing material for the Sky, you probably did see a mobile application, so talking Android, iOS application of what you saw in the Windows app. Yes, that's in development, and yes, that is kind of in the product pipeline for the Sky would be to add Android and iOS installations of the app that you saw demonstrated today. Again, I wish that I could give a definite timeline, but it is in the development phase and something that hopefully I will be excited to announce and offer soon. All right. Well, I think that that is all of the questions that I see this morning. Thank you guys all again so much for joining. I love being able to get on and just walk through these products with you every month. Be sure to join us again next month. We'll be looking at another NDD product. You can look at upcoming product webinars, educational webinars as well on our website, nddmed.com, anytime. And we hope to see you on another webinar soon. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.